Alright, Schlockmeisters fans, going to watch one of my old favorites. Comedy with Richard Pryor called Bustin' Loose. Let's watch. Richard Pryor is a con man and a thief. And he's about to break into this building when he gets foiled by a dog. So he tries a new scheme.
That ain't no cop. How you know? You don't piss like no cop. What are you worried about, man? Just keep your nerve. That's all you gotta do.
So he's trying to get some stereos and TVs.
Damn. You know it's gonna take a week for him to fix this, man. I mean, a black man can't stand a week off. You know what I mean? You gotta help me out.
I won't hold you up, man. Luke, give him whatever he needs.
But before he can leave, his buddy gets scared. This is Cicely Tyson on the left.
What are you going to do with 8 kids?
Well, I am planning to take them to my aunt's farm, just outside of Seattle, for starters. That'll give them a home.
This orphanage is going to close, and there's no place for these kids.
Broad daylight, stay 45 minutes.
He's in court.
Go back to prison, right?
Braxton, you are talking about 5 to 10 years.
I know that, Your Honor. But I want you to give me 20 years. I gotta have 20 years. I can't go back on parole. Not with that man. Let me snipe it for us again.
He's putting on an act.
What do you mean let go? You
10 years probation.
No! Not probation! Oh, no!
Get that man out of my courtroom.
His parole officer is Cicely Tyson's boyfriend.
Well, is it going to make it? Well, Joe, how's it look?
So he wants to go to Washington with the kids.
Piece of shit!
What you trying to do?
Trying to do nothing, man. I'm doing
Look,
what
I told you to tell her one thing.
You told me to tell her the bus don't work. That's what I told her.
Donald? What's going on?
Donald
That's your man.
doesn't want her to leave.
You know something, Braxton? I'm going to burn your butt on this one. What I'm going to do. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to fix that bus. You're going to take Miss Perry and those kids all the way to Washington, and you're going to be on your best behavior. You got that?
I got it, man.
So they're leaving Philadelphia.
Hell of a group, man.
Here's your travel permit and your return bus ticket back to Philly.
Stick it. Thanks so much, man.
Chip for all of us. And it is not an excuse to get out of doing your schoolwork. Get your workbooks out, please.
Miss Perry, mindful out the window.
Goodbye, Miss Perry.
Night number 1.
Listen, we're in trouble. 3 of the boys have just run off.
Great. Maybe the rest of them will run away.
No, come on, you don't understand what I'm saying. I need you to get up and come look for them for me.
I ain't no tour bus. I ain't gonna chase no damn kids. I drive a bus.
One of the kids' stuffed animals has to go pee.
in the woods. Bears pee in the woods.
I ain't going in the woods. There's snakes in the woods.
Good. That's wonderful. What? Let the bear pee in your pocket. Leave me alone.
The next night, their bus gets stuck in the mud. The kids are a rowdy bunch.
Jesus. Joe.
So Joe walks off to try to find some help and runs into a little problem.
Try me one time, you understand? Get me working on the mother. Bitch gonna happen.
He tells them about the kids on the bus.
What are you doing?
Harold is blind.
All the kids are blind. All of them. They're blind. I'm taking them to the hospital. I'm just trying to take them to the hospital. They need an operation.
Really, only one kid is blind. So believe it or not, the KKK helped push them out. And once they're out, the kids are laughing their ass off because they can see.
All right. I don't think we should tell anybody about this.
Then you could take me to your room and...
That's Annie.
What the hell's wrong with you, man? You think you can say anything to anybody?
Don't Don't you like me?
Yeah, I like you, but I don't mean I want to go to bed with you because I like you.
Why not?
You think everybody that likes you goes to bed with you?
Yeah, they do.
Well, they're sick.
Donald shows up while they're on the road.
Donald, what are you doing here?
He immediately thinks there's something between Richard Pryor and Cicely Tyson,
What are you doing here?
which there isn't. So with Donald skulking around, Vivian says, let's go.
Sorry, please, get dressed quickly. The children are already on the bus. We're leaving now. Please hurry. Put your clothes on quickly.
Middle of the night. Donald catches up with them and stops them. And then Harold, the blind kid, decides to take off because he doesn't want to go back to Philly.
Harry, get your children! I ain't stop! I ain't going myself. Mommy, I ain't going. I ain't going.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Please. Oh, Emily.
It's all right.
Donald doesn't want him going any further, but they'll get on a bus and they go.
Look, listen. I took your wallet and I put it in Donald's pocket. Now I got his wallet and I'm giving it to you, man.
Jesus Christ.
Look, if you get caught on the highway, you'll be alright.
Wait, it's not mine, will you? Harry, we got a lie. Well, you can't explain. Says he's a parole officer.
Eventually they do make it all the way to Washington to Cicely Tyson's parents' place. Here's that a romance is blossoming.
I'm stuck up in the tree. I went up to get.
That is a rock egg. That's for you. It's magic.
I think in Philadelphia would be more helpful this day.
Good day, Mr. Schuyler. And thank you for nothing.
She's trying to get a loan to
There she is.
keep the farm, keep the kids.
I needed $15,000 to pay taxes and mortgages. They're going to sell the place. I don't qualify. I don't have a job. I cannot get the money. Everything
A few questions about that
So
truck.
Joe attends a
Truck drawer.
pyramid
Now, you
scheme
said if I give you $1,000
seminar.
this afternoon, my money will double, maybe even triple. Triple? Oh my God! Hey, I mean,
He
this
pulls a
whole
line of
lot
bullshit on them.
Now you won't mind if I collect the money. I mean, I'm one of these people. You people don't mind, do you?
So people start giving them money and Joe starts pocketing it.
Thank you, Dad.
But they seem doing it. And then Vivian shows up.
About this outfit, I'm trying to make us money. Yes, ma'am. $300. That's all you got. Here's $15,000 for the kids. Take it home. Don't worry about a thing, man. Next time.
So they hightail it out of there, and then the pyramid scheme guys chase him. Vivian burns the money.
Money! Leave him alone! You want the money? I got the money! Come and get it! Get the money!
All night for a week with little Linda when she had...
The banker.
Helping Harold learn Italian and Braille. Molto grazie.
The kids have been feeding him a line of bullshit.
You know, these are really wonderful children. They deserve...
Then Donald shows up.
Officer, this man is in violation of his parole. I'm his parole officer. I'm taking him, this woman, and these brats back to Philadelphia.
What's going on here?
You heard me. I'm taking these people back to Philadelphia.
Do you have a warrant for my arrest?
Well? No.
I'm not going back.
I'm gonna get a warrant for his arrest.
Oh,
for
wait
her
a
arrest.
minute, Fran. Before you get off the phone, all these children will be registered in the state. And I'm having the farm transferred back to Miss Perry in her name with a big enough loan to be sure she can operate it properly.
When we grow up, we'll find people just like you. From this day on, you are off parole and nobody can stop you no more.
Kids are gonna miss Joe.
More swearing.
I ain't gonna lose it on of a tough Puerto Rican.
Get out.
Donald has a change of heart.
Go on back home.
All right, let's talk about this movie called Bustin' Loose. This is a very nostalgic movie for me because way back in March of 1982, we got cable for the first time, and we had all the movie channels, and then the two big movies that month were Any Which Way You Can and Bustin' Loose. So saw this movie over and over and over again. It was very popular with all the other grade school kids that were my peers at the time, so we saw this movie a lot. Ended up taping this movie once I got a beta VCR a few years later, and watched it then too. I've watched this one several times over the years. It's just, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but I've seen it a lot. It's probably one of my most watched films, and it's just kind of a feel-good comedy is what it is. Richard Pryor is this ex-con, and he's kind of conned into taking these kids and Cicely Tyson across country from Philadelphia to Washington because they've kind of been kicked out of the system. They're like foster kids, orphan kids. They have no family, so Vivian, Cicely Tyson, is going to take them to her parents' farm in Washington to stay. And it's basically their adventures on the road to get there and such. So that's the movie. And this movie also is well known because Richard Pryor had a well-known freebasing accident. And it happened in between filming of this. They filmed this in 1979, like between September and December, I think, of that year. And then it sat on the shelf for about a year, and then the movie Stir Crazy with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder came out, and that movie became very popular, so they dusted this one off and filmed a couple extra scenes and threw this out in 1981. By then, he had lost a lot of weight because of his accident, so there is some scenes where they had to give him some extra padding to make him fill out a little bit. Now, I honestly haven't been able to detect which scenes those are, but I've been told, I've read, that's exactly what the case was. So, anyway, I really like this movie a lot. In fact, I'm going to show you this here. This is the cable guide that we had back then. It's called Premium, and you can see Any Which Way You Can is on the cover there. And if you open it up to the first page, you can see the two big movies they're advertising that month were Any Which Way You Can and Bustin' Loose. So yeah, I saw this a lot. It was on all the movie channels, and I watched it a lot. So anyway, it's called Bustin' Loose. The DVD is pretty cheap. You can get this for about $5. It's put out by Good Times, actually. And it's also available on some compilation DVDs with other Richard Pryor films as well. And that's it. So anyway, check it out. Let me know what you think about it. It's called Bustin' Loose. You know, interestingly, the 8 kids in this movie, 7 of them never did any other movie or TV show other than Bustin' Loose. So how about that? And also, this was spun off into a TV series in 1987, although it was very short-lived. Anyway, check it out. Leave some comments down below. We'll talk about it. Bustin' Loose. Watch it. Bye.